Okay, carburetors can be intimidating, but we're going to make it real simple for you. This one has an aftermarket air cleaner, and it has the breather bolts instead of the stock breather system, which would send the oil vapors back into the intake. So yours may look a little different. Don't be alarmed. I'm just going to show you what you need to take this off, and we're going to take it off, and we're going to explain a few things. Most of these will be the same. So we're going to use a 3/16 Allen, a 5/32 Allen, 3/4 socket. We're going to use a wobble extension. We're going to also have a 3/4 wrench, a pair of needle nose pliers, ratchet, and I'm going to use a Milwaukee ratchet to speed things up. Okay, and there's your carburetor. To get this cable off, what I had done was I had just pulled and made it like I had actuated the throttle, and then it gave me the access to slip the end of the throttle cable off. I used the needle nose pliers to pop off the vacuum hose for the what the hell is it called? I forget. The name is blanking me. I'll come back to it. And then I also used the hose to pull the needle nose to pull the drain hose off. I should have drained the gas, but whatever. And then I used it to pull the line off of the petcock. I made sure the petcock was off before doing this, so I didn't spill more gas than I did from the carburetor. So the problem with this carburetor was that it was dumping gas out of the drain line, which also doubles as your float bowl overflow line. So we're going to sort that out. If you need to drain your carburetor, that would be this flathead here. You release that clockwise, and then the fuel will pour out of here. From factory on these, this is blocked off. There's a plug here. You either have to drill it out and pull it out, or it looks like what this person did was they hit it with a grinder, I guess. I don't know. And then another problem you'll have with these sometimes is this little spout will get gummed up with old gas. What that is you can check it by twisting your throttle, and when you do this, every time you hit the throttle like that, this actuates a accelerator pump here, and that creates a vacuum, and it squirts the gas, pulls the gas from in the bowl and pushes it up through this spout. So every time you hit the throttle with your air cleaner off, you should see gas spray out of this. If it's not spraying out of this, then you have to take this apart and clean out the passageway that's down in here. Just for reference, this is what it should look like when you hit the throttle. That's a good squirt. So I've been through this carburetor before. This carburetor has been cleaned. It's been taken apart, sent to a vapor hone. Yeah, I've done a rebuild kit in this, but one thing that I did not do with the rebuild kit was I did not, I guess I did not replace one of these. This is what affects your overflow. So we're going to check that out now. So you have to get the bottom off, is these 4 screws here. These 3 screws are just to get to the accelerator pump. So I'll show that first, and then I'll show you the rest of this. Here's a little tip. If you're ever having trouble getting some of these old screws out, make sure, one, that you have the right size Phillips head tip. They do make different size tips. Some are more pointy, some are more stubby. So make sure you have the right size tip to fit the screw. Once you do have the correct size screwdriver to fit the screw, I would set your screwdriver into the screw really well and then gently tap on the top of the screwdriver with a small hammer, and that will shock load the threads so that the screw comes out easier. This way you don't end up stripping out the head of the screw and then have to drill out the screw. Trust me, it works. Basically what's happening is when you're hitting the throttle, you can see, without the diaphragm there, you can see this plunger comes down. Comes down, the spring would push it back up. So this diaphragm would work back and forth, and much like any kind of suction, it's basically with this hole under here on the other side of the diaphragm and that rubber diaphragm here. When everything is working well, that pumping up and down of this is using this hole to create suction, and that hole is here. So that hole is pulling gas, pushing gas, pulling gas, pushing gas. So it's pulling gas from the float bowl down to this passageway, and it's just pumping the gas through this passageway here. So as the throttle comes down, it's pulling gas in from the bowl into this passageway, and then when you let off the spring, it's pushing back up and it's sending the gas back up. So I got a rebuild kit here. So we're going to take our spring, we're going to put our spring in here, put the diaphragm back in here. We're going to put this all back together on this accelerator pump, and I'll put the screws back in there, and then I'll take the bowl off. Okay, we got the screws out of the bowl, pulling the float bowl off, and just gonna set that aside, show you this. So be mindful of this. This is the rod for the accelerator pump. So here's the inside of that bowl, and so here's the pump and here's your passageway. This lets the gas down into the hole, and that's directly above where that hole is for the air, for it to create that little suction for that pump. And then here's the passageway at my thumb going over, and that comes up to here, and there's the spout, the little jet for the accelerator. And this is your drain and overflow pipe. You can see the hole down here by my thumb. It's hard to see. There's a hole there, and that's to drain the gas out of the bowl, which is recommended to do before taking the carb off, which I did not do, which is why I have all of this chemical absorber on the floor and sawdust from my previous project to soak up that gas. So that's it for the bowl. Now looking at the carburetor itself, this spot I mentioned before that had a blind plug on it, this is for your that is your, what is that on this? This is a CV Carb. So this is your air fuel mixture screw. So this is how you adjust to enrichen or lean out your air fuel mixture. Then you have your main jet and your pilot jet. I'm not really going to get into those. Leave them alone unless you're really, you know, doing aftermarket pipes and intake and all of that, because then you're going to need to change your jets a little bit so your bike runs optimally. But realistically, if you wanted to get in here and clean this carb out, you would take a flathead screwdriver that will fit down in there, and like I said before, put the screwdriver in, give it a tap with the a hammer just to knock the threads, any crusties, and then be nice and gentle with this. You don't want to strip these out. These are brass and they will strip out easily. Make sure you have a good rebuild kit on hand. Replace gaskets, replace, there's lots of seals down in here. And then you can even replace the float bowls. Some of the older ones were metal, and they may be just corroded over time, and you may, even the plastic ones, you may possibly have a pinhole, which would allow gas to get into the float and prevent it from floating. So if it has gas in it and it won't float, it's essentially not going to shut off the flow of gas down into your carburetor. So if your carburetor is leaking from the overflow and out of that drain hose, that could be the culprit. It could be that your float is corrupted, and easy test for that is to take it off and put it in something. You put in a cup of water. Basically try to submerge it for a little while, see if bubbles come out. Submerge it for a good while, a good 5 minutes, with something heavy on top of it, just to keep it down in there, and then take the thing off. And if it still floats, then, and it didn't get any fluid into it, then that's an easy way to test to see if it's got a pinhole or not. There's a tang on the float, and that tang goes into the I'll show you on this one. It goes into that little spring. It's hard to focus. And then this little pin in here actually pushes in, it depresses, so the gas can actually get into there and keep that from pressing down as well. And that's that'll stop that valve from working. So you need to make sure that that pin in there can depress, doesn't get clogged up. And then also there's an adjustment with that tang and everything. I'm not going to get into all that. I'm just going over cleaning it and explaining what things do. I'm not going to get that in depth into the carburetor, at least not today. Maybe a future video. So easy way to take this out. There's a pin in here. This pin typically only goes in one way. Usually there's an arrow. I don't see an arrow on this one, but I see it sticking out some on this side, so I'm going to go approach it from this side. And I have just like a Arbor Freight center punch nail set. Keep it on the light side, and basically with this is you just push on it, you'll hear it click. It's spring loaded, so I'm just gonna push on it here. Well, this one's actually pretty loose because I've been in here already. So this one actually just slipped right out. Then we pick this up with that and let it kind of just hang off of there. So that's the whole thing there. There's the new one. And this one, pretty sure, yeah. See, this one has way more throw than the other one. Let me see if I can get a good shot of that. See, that one goes all the way in. And I know this is a new one because I replaced this with a rebuild kit. So, and here's the old one from another carburetor. See how it's already about halfway down? It doesn't go all the way in either. That's as far in as it goes. So this one is definitely probably just old gas, or just, you know, something's screwing it up. One more thing to just overall inspect on your carburetor is inside here on the top cover you have another diaphragm that controls the venturi. I'll take the top cover off and show you that. So under the top cover, first you'll notice the spring. And then you have the slide. Can only go in one way. You'll notice that this, I'm trying to line it up so you can see. You'll notice that the lines are not dead center. They're favoring the bottom of that circle. So you can't put it in backwards. So there you have it with your needle there. There's a plastic piece inside here that goes into the spring, and then the bottom of it, your needle goes into that. And so if this rubber is compromised and has a crack or a hole or a rip, basically what's going to happen is when you hit your throttle and you allow the air to come in, it's not going to be able to create that vacuum. It's not going to have a good seal and create that vacuum to allow this to rise up, which would allow air and fuel to go through the carburetor and then into the combustion chamber. So if you're hitting the throttle while it's running, if you got your bike running, you're having issues with accelerating, with revving up at in neutral while sitting at idle, and you pop your air cleaner off while it's running, and you're hitting the throttle, and this piece is not rising. If it's just sitting there, you hit the throttle, you crack the throttle, and it doesn't move. Well, that's probably because, well, as long as your throttle cable's not broken, that's probably because there's a hole in here, and so it's not allowed, or it may go a little bit, but not all the way. It may just rise a little bit, but it's not going all the way up. If it's fluttering and it's not going all the way up, you probably don't have vacuum, and there's probably a hole in this, so you have to replace this piece. And that's pretty much it for the basics on the carburetor. I'm going to put this all back together, and I got this other one here. This one I had just taken apart and cleaned because it was having some issues with the overflow, like I was talking about. So I cleaned that out. This old valve here was actually from that carburetor, so I put a new one in there, and we're going to throw that back on this bike instead of this fresh one. This is my tester, and we're going to get this bike running again. And that's it for today. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll see if I can come up with some more videos for you guys. Thanks.